Hey Tallies, what's up? Alan here, Too Tall to Ride. I'm here at Blackman's Cycle. Let me get on the right side of that so you can see it. And today we are checking out some Suzuki motorcycles. Let's take a look at them.
When you look at the history of Suzuki, you see a brand obsessed with two things: bulletproof engineering and pure, unadulterated performance. But if you're a taller rider, you've probably spent years looking at their legendary lineup and thinking, yeah, but will I actually fit on it? The truth is, standard sport bikes usually feel like pocket bikes when you're long in the torso or have a massive inseam. Your knees hit the fairings, your back screams, and it just ruins the ride. But Suzuki has surprised me in the past, and I felt it was time to give them a shot. We'll be looking at two legendary performers that may just buck that trend completely. First, you have the ultra-modern GSX-S1000GX. It's a crossover sport touring weapon that features a much taller seat height and an open, relaxed rider triangle. It gives you upright comfort without forcing you to buy a massive adventure bike. And then there's the Hayabusa. It's a hyperbike icon, but because of its long, stretched-out wheelbase and surprisingly spacious cockpit, it's been a secret haven for big and tall riders for decades. Today, we're throwing a leg over both to see how they handle, how they feel, and which one reigns supreme for the tall crowd.
So today we're going to be checking out two bikes. First, we got the GX-1000, and we're also going to be taking a look at the Busa. I'm excited to ride the Busa because I've never actually ridden one. I've sat on it a few times. For me personally, probably wouldn't be where I would be looking for because I personally like fast twisties, and I know that this is more of a straight line monster. Regardless of that, I'm really interested to see how it actually does feel on the road. Because like I said, haven't ridden it, just sat on it. It's a pretty comfortable bike for a taller person. Even though it is shorter, it's got such a long wheelbase, it really stretches you out and it gives you some more room. So, interested to see what it feels like moving. Let's take a ride.
Now, before we hop on the bike, I wanted to go over a little bit about it. I'm not going to cover everything on here. You can pause the video and take a look at it if you really want to see the details. But just to talk about a few of the big ones on here. It's got a 999cc engine, 6-speed transmission with quick shift. Delivers 150 horsepower at 11,000 RPMs with 78 foot-pounds of torque. It's got an electric suspension, 511 pounds wet. The seat height is 33.3 inches with a 5-gallon fuel capacity, has a 6.5-inch TFT display, and really just tons and tons of rider aids. Again, you can pause that video to take a look at them.
All right, so here we are checking out the GSX-S1000GX. Okay, so seating on it wasn't bad sitting still, but as soon as I got moving, it really does feel like it's pushing you forward a lot. The bumper behind the main seat, like the secondary seat, is pretty far forward, which pushes you more forward. The controls, the foot controls, they're a little tight, but they are both, I was looking at them, they both are adjustable. This model has the electronic suspension, so if you're not used to that, what'll happen, that's funny, what'll happen as you're slowing down, it actually levels the front end up so that you're not dipping down into that curve or when you're coming to a sudden stop. A lot of people, I think, don't like the electronic suspension because it doesn't feel like they're actually slowing down or stopping, when in reality they are. So it's one of those things that takes some getting used to. The way this bike was described to me, he said it's like a adventure bike had a baby with a touring bike that had a baby with a sport bike. So it's supposed to have a lot of power, I kind of don't like though how far back the foot controls are. Like, it doesn't, your legs feel pretty cramped up on it. And with the bars in stock position, my hands are also pretty close to me. So I personally, I mean, this bike would be a lot more comfortable to me if I were sitting farther back as opposed to just rolling the handlebars forward, because it's a combination of where the handles are and where the seat is. Honestly, not too much of a fan of how this is positioned. I find that I'm personally a little bit more forgiving on that when it is a sport bike that is made for higher performance. But if you got something that is supposed to be more comfortable, and especially if you're looking at, you know, your only ride, for me, I'm a little less forgiving on the comfort level for me when it starts off just being such a big bike to begin with. It's got a nice display, very bright and colorful. Easy to see everything, and the navigation for your modes and stuff is all right there on the screen, which is pretty nice. Red line's about 11,500 RPM. It's got a lot of room to play there. And as far as leaning it, it's kind of funny. Like, it leans over pretty easily to begin with, but then you kind of have to push it to get it to lean over the rest of the way. Not too bad, but it's like once you get to right about there, then you really have to push it in. This bike has cruise, has multiple different ride modes, A, B, and C. A is your more sporty, aggressive one. B is linear, is what they call it, where whatever your twist on the throttle, that's what's happening with motor. And then C is your comfort, where you actually take less power delivery at the beginning of the throttle turn. And then it's also got your traction control and one or two other things. Aside from the leg position and the foot position, it is a pretty fun bike. I've pretty much been in second gear since I shifted into it, so you can really ride that same gear out all the way pretty far in terms of low to high speeds. If my legs were shorter, this would be a really fun bike for me. But I kind of already feel like it's not something that's very well suited for a taller rider. Even though it's a taller bike, it goes back to what I've said before in terms of it's not so much about the seat height as it is about the leg position. Yeah, that electronic suspension kicked in. That is strange. You're used to the bike dipping a little bit whenever you hit the brakes, and it doesn't do that. It's a fun road. I need to turn my VTEC tracking on the next one so I know where this is. Between the electronic suspension and the positioning of the brakes and everything, and how hard it is to push this over farther, I could see this really throwing people off in a tight curve. Something you definitely would have to become accustomed to on how it feels before you really start tackling things, anything real aggressive, because it could throw you off and end up sending you off into into the woods. Hardly used my quick shift at all. I'm just so used to grabbing that clutch. Not that I'm really shifting a whole lot anyway, but pretty nice bike, but for as big as it looks, it doesn't feel as big as it should. But it's got to get up and go. And we're back. Yeah, all in all, a GX, a nice, fun bike. A little hard to push into the curves and definitely a little tight for a taller person. If it's something that you're really interested in, you could probably make it work. Said it before, I'll say it 100 times again, a custom seat is going to make a load of difference. And with the fact that this is already so tall, I think that you have a little bit more room to play with that and not mess too much with the ergonomics of the bike. So something to look into if you're interested in it. But off the showroom floor, yeah, I'd want something a little bit more comfortable if I were getting something this big. But still a fun ride. Still a fun ride. So in looking at the seat, just eyeballing it in terms of what could be done to change that up, I think if you were to get a custom seat made, you might be able to get that adjusted so that it's not sloped so much. I'm not really sure if you really could do something different with that. But that seat could certainly be higher for me, for sure. I feel like I could almost ride that sitting on the back seat. That's how tight it was.
Okay, now to talk a little bit about the Suzuki Hayabusa. This thing has a massive 1,340cc engine, has a 6-speed transmission with a quick shift, delivers 187 horsepower at 9,700 RPM, has 111 foot-pounds of torque, goes 0 to 60 in about 2.7 seconds. The front fork is inverted. It's got a single rear shock. Comes in at 582 pounds wet, so pretty hefty. The wheelbase is 58.3 inches, which really isn't even that much longer than the GX was. It's got a 5.3 gallon fuel tank, and again, just tons of rider aids. Feel free to pause the video and check out any more details there.
So here we are on the Busa. Sitting on it. It is a more aggressive riding stance. I mean, I knew that. Yeah, you're leaning forward a little bit more on it. I like the sound of the engine on this. I also really like the dashboard. It's mostly analog, but it's got a little center screen for all your extra stuff. Ride modes, your gear indicator. Not a very big screen, but I kind of like how it looks. It's kind of funny to me. All the other demo rides you go to, they have it set on like a, what would be the equivalent of like a comfort. And here, and they tell you, do not switch the ride modes, leave it on what it's on. And I get it, if you're not used to the bike, they don't want you messing with it while you're riding and potentially causing accidents. So it's kind of surprising to me that they're saying what they are, but they encourage you to play around with it, which is actually kind of nice, so you can really get a feel for what the bike is about and what it has the capability of offering. But for me, I'm just going to leave it on the sport mode, ride mode A. So something I'm noticing on this, it was the same thing on the Gixxer that I have. The angle of the hand controls are angled more up, and so that causes your wrist to be further down, and I'm not a fan of that. Puts a lot of strain on the wrist because you're having to hold your wrist back to grab a hold of the handlebars, or not the bars, but the like the clutch and the brake. Oh yeah, it's got power. Holy crap. Yeah, you tap that throttle and that front end comes up. You are squatted down pretty low on this between the peg position and the seat height. I think though that getting a seat to raise that height a little bit wouldn't really be bad on this. It might throw you forward just a little bit more, but then you get some aftermarket bars to raise those bars up higher. Could probably get something different for these, but I am already getting wrist discomfort from the angle of those controls. Just got out of the parking lot. You know, from what I've heard from other people about the Busa, that it doesn't handle great in the curves, and we got some curves up ahead, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that handles. But just throwing it around, it's not too bad. Handles a little bit better than what I was expecting it to. Honestly, I think it handles a little bit better than the GX. We'll see though. It's a pretty bike. I really do like how that dash is, especially on the special edition with the gold insets on the gauges. This one also has a little cowl over the back seat area. This thing is full of raw power. Got stuck behind a slow guy. Yeah, if I were going to get one of these, I'd be looking at aftermarket bars, raise up the angle a little bit, different grips, or even grip puppies to give some more diameter on the grips. Change the position of the clutch and brake levers so I'm not cranking my wrist up to grab them. And maybe a little bit of a higher seat. This bike isn't exactly made for long distance comfort because you are, in a way, laying over the bike. But all in all, it's not too bad. You can get just a couple of things changed out to accommodate yourself a little bit better. Give you more endurance on it. That seat height will also give you more foot to peg to seat ratio. But I'm honestly pretty impressed with how it handles on the curves. I'm not trying anything super fast or super tight. What we've been doing, it's pretty good. Now, somebody who's used to riding smaller wheelbase sports bikes might have a different opinion. Whereas, I've got a long history of cruisers and baggers, and I'm used to throwing those around. Yeah, it leans into them even better than the GX does, in my opinion. And I've seen some people do some crazy stuff with the Busas. I know that for a while there was this couple that I was following on Facebook that outfitted it with a dark side rear tire and put chains on it, and they went two up and geared it up so that they could take it off-road. So depending on what you want to do with these things, they're pretty capable in a variety of situations. And probably one of the better sports bikes for two-up riding. I'm definitely more impressed with it than I thought I was going to be. I knew it was going to have the power, and it really delivers on that. But I did not expect it to handle as well as it does. If I could have just gotten behind a faster rider, I could have put it a little bit more to the test. That's a fun spot. Gotta say, comfort wise, it's not really there, especially on the hands and the wrists. But comparing this to other sport bikes I've ridden doing these demo rides, this one I think is the most fun. Whether you're talking about the Mandela or the R9, this is so much better than the R9. Certainly better than the XSR 900 from Yamaha in terms of power. This really is a beast. No complaints about the handling. And my heel is only about 8 inches under my butt. It's pretty tight. If you had these bars lifted up a little bit and brought back, you could really almost sit upright on it. Almost. Pretty well balanced when I came to a stop, but it took me a second before I had to put my foot down. I really like the color on this one. I do feel a lot of heat coming off of it underneath my butt. And it's not from me. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for my demo ride today on the Suzuki GX and the Busa. So big shout out to Blackman Cycle for hosting the event, and a huge thanks to Suzuki for letting us come out and try their bikes out. Always a lot of fun. Highly recommend doing so if you are looking at a bike. You got to know how it is moving underneath you to know if it's going to fit you, especially if you're vertically gifted like I am. So once again, thank you all for watching. If you think this kind of content would help somebody, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this out to those who are looking. So thanks a lot, you guys. Peace out. Ride safe. Take care. Bye.